morning, everybody.
Good morning, Brad.
Thanks for coming in today. Does everybody have an agenda? Budget job? All right. So, this session is ADA compliant for design and construction. We have a good mix of design folks and construction folks in the house. We also have a good mix of DOT folks and consultants. This whole presentation kind of came together through a collaboration with ACEC, the consultant community, talking about things that we struggle with as a group, and ADA is one of those areas that we've struggled with over the years. Hopefully, after the next 4 hours, you'll have learned some things, and that struggle will be a little less of a struggle for you. As I said, it's a collaborative program. We'll be presenting, consultants will be presenting as well. We've got some good interactive opportunities for you here. And we want to make sure you participate. So don't hesitate to ask questions or raise comments, anything along those lines as we're going through the presentation.
Hi again, I'm Theresa Savoy. I'm the ADA coordinator for the Department of Transportation. We'll say that we are recording this today, so we're hoping to put it online on our website so that others who aren't able to attend will be able to get the information. Thanks for being here. So I'm just going to give you a brief overview of where we're at, why we're here, and Brad kind of talked about, we're moving forward to really requiring ADA to be done on a lot of our projects. And all of our projects where we are doing any kind of paving, there's usually some ADA unless we're in the rural areas. So we just want to give you a broader perspective, get a broader perspective. So just a question out there, what was the first ADA law passed in the United States? When was that?
1994?
Nope. A little bit further back. It was 1973, and that was the Rehabilitation Act, and under that act, under Section 504, we were required to, it prohibited discrimination on programs that received federal financial assistance. So if you're getting federal dollars, you needed to make things compliant. Now, what compliant meant then was a little bit different than what it means now. The ACEC board, which we'll talk about later, hadn't been created, but it goes back as far as 1973. In 1990, the Disabilities Act was passed, the ADA, and in that act, it gave everybody the responsibility to ensuring that people with disabilities have the same rights and opportunities as anyone else. That's the town, state, federal government, businesses, all of those entities, except for private homes, required that you give people with disabilities the same rights and opportunities. So what changed with the ADA? Again, it needed to be met regardless of funding. So if the town says, well, we don't have any federal dollars in it or state dollars, it's their responsibility to meet that need. The Department of Justice required standards for accessibility. Prior to this, there were a bunch of standards, AFAS and ADAT, and a bunch of different standards that people use. The DOJ required the ACEC board to develop standards, and initially these standards were specific to architecture. So that's why we have some of the standards that we have, is because it was very specific to buildings and architecture, and not a whole lot was given to right-of-ways and things like that. The ACEC board worked with the US DOT to develop the public right-of-way accessibility guidelines, or the PROAG, which I'll be referring to and you probably have heard of. These were worked out for many years and worked on, and rulemaking was completed in 2011, but it still has not become law. It has not been approved. So we're in a little bit of limbo, but we're trying to build to the PROAG, because once it does, that's how we're going to have to build our system. So just some quick Maine facts. There are over 200,000 people with one or more disabilities residing in Maine, and this is census information. So these are just the people that say that they have a disability. There are a lot of people who are disabled and have disabilities that they wouldn't consider themselves having one, especially as you age. Visual impairment, mobility issues, things like that. Nearly 16% of the population, or 1.3 million, is disabled. So that's 1 in 7. And among the 6 types of disabilities identified, the highest was ambulatory, or moving, being able to move around. So when people say there aren't disabled people in my community, it's pretty unlikely that there isn't. So why accessibility infrastructure is important? Many individuals rely on this system. They can't get out and drive. They need to get from place to place. They need to get to bus stops. They need to get to hospitals, doctor's appointments, work, and meet with family, friends, just to connect. And they rely on a safe and accessible infrastructure to provide consistent access. So that when they get to a point, they don't have to turn around and go back. And that's what's been happening over the years. When you're on a sidewalk, you come to a curb, you can't go over that curb, you have to go back and around and find a different path. If there's no access or limited access, people with disabilities are prevented from fully participating in society, and that's what the ADA requires. So this is just some visuals, because pictures sometimes speak 1,000 words. You can't get off the sidewalk if it's like that. This person can't get up that sidewalk. People can connect, and people can use the system, but we're trying to get it more consistent. And everyone else, it raises all ships. Everyone else is better off not having to kick carts over curb ramps and being able to walk and use the sidewalk. So what does the ADA require for public rights-of-ways? When a facility is altered, it must be made compliant. Under Title II, and that's for public agencies and entities of inventory of assets, list those items that are deficient and have a plan to mitigate those deficiencies. That's the state of Maine, that's Wittipitlock, that's Portland, and we're trying to catch up with that, and Maine is working towards that. ADA compliance must be met to the maximum extent feasible when a facility is altered. So if you look at a curb ramp and you say, we're never going to get that compliant, you can't walk away from it. You have to look at it and say, how compliant can we get that curb ramp? And then you have to fix it to the maximum extent feasible. And we'll talk about what that means later on in the day when we look at our design standards and other information. So there have been some big national lawsuits that have really driven this home to departments of transportation. One was in 2009. That's a $1.1 billion lawsuit. California, even since I go there every year, or most every year, to visit my folks in winter, and you can see the changes that are being made over those years. So they're working towards, for the next 30 years, but that was in 11, fixing those areas. More recently, the Oregon Department of Transportation settled a lawsuit of $23 million, and that's for sidewalk, curb ramps, for curb ramps and for pedestrian signals. So that's $23 million that's coming off the top of their program that they need to fix ADA. So alterations versus maintenance. For years, our standard here and most nationally was that maintenance paving was, and well, it was maintenance, not an alteration. But in 2013, the US DOJ and the US DOT said that's an alteration. If you're impacting the curb ramps while you're going by that are affected, the crosswalks that are affected, that's an alteration, and you need to fix those. So that really changed the way we managed our paving and updated our ADA facilities. So a question for you, if we put a sidewalk on this road, would it be alteration or a new facility?
It's a new facility.
It would be an alteration. Because that's the existing facility, and you're altering it. I learned about this most recently, this spring, from presentation I went to was somebody who actually worked on the access board. But you're altering this roadway, so it's an alteration. Doesn't mean you can't build it to the maximum extent feasible. It just means it gives us a little bit more flexibility in when we build it. And if you think about it, going back there, if these were buildings, you'd have to retrofit that sidewalk if you were building a sidewalk there. So it makes more sense, like the tree. So our efforts on curb ramps, we developed a more comprehensive standard of details that you're going to hear about later that Marcel really worked hard on, and he did a great job of it. He's going to give us a presentation on it. We've been inspecting curb ramps for compliance on projects, and we're going to be doing more and more of that. Ramps must be made compliant to the maximum extent feasible. And if ADA ramps can't be made compliant, we need to document it. We need to document why, and we need to attach that information to our inventory. Last year, we collected data on recently closed projects. This was in 2018, and what we do is we download all the information once a year. Usually, we'll probably do it in January this year, what we've collected. And some of these were on projects that we most recently did. 18 was on projects that we worked on between the years 2011 and 18. So we inspected 3,110. 313 were compliant. A lot of these were ones that we just did. So what we want is, why we're here is we don't want this to continue to happen. This is pretty common. I'm not, we're getting the information out and we're learning, but gone is the day where we could look at it, say close enough, and walk off. We've collected about 10,000 of them so far. This year we've collected a lot, so we're going to have a lot more information. So where are they failing? Well, if a curb ramp isn't present, it fails on everything, because you don't have a crosswalk or anything. So of those that we looked at, there were 434 that didn't even have a ramp. But the detectable warning fields weren't being put in properly, or they're non-existent. And counter slopes and cross slopes were really challenging. The level landing, that's pretty high. I was thinking it would be higher, because we haven't really done level landings a whole lot or worked through what it means to have a level landing on a curb ramp, and we'll talk a lot about that later on. So, in closing on this section, we just need to be sure we have compliance before we leave the job. And that means through scoping, design, construction, and inspection. And so it's going to be a change on how we do things, but it's going to be part of the inspection process. And on that note, I will hand it over to Atlee. Any questions? Sorry.
Yeah. The picture of the road that you had.
Yeah.
Was that road widened, or was it just a paving?
If you put a sidewalk on it. There's nothing to do with it. If there's sidewalks there, then you need to do, but if you were to put a new sidewalk on this road, it would be an alteration, regardless of what the project is. Okay. But if it's just paving, if there was a crosswalk and there was a sidewalk, you'd have to fix those